Hello and welcome to Empire of the Full Moon. If you're new here, I'm your host, Mike Cadaver, and on this show I talk about anything and everything having to do with the Charles Band film empire. I talk about the classics. I talk about the not-so-classics. I talk about serious films, and like today, I talk about silly movies filled with silly plots, schlocky dialogue, and lots of unnecessary nudity. So I hate to call any nudity unnecessary, but it's, it's just such a big draw for Charles Band's work. But I'll tell you what, so I'm a little bit embarrassed to be doing this show. If you're related to me in any way, like a parent or a child or anything like that, I was going to do it with a paper bag over my head, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to pretend that I am not all for Charles Band's work, and not only Charles Band, but Jim Wynorski. I mean, both of those guys, and we'll talk about both of them coming up, but I'll tell you what, both those guys had a huge impact on me and my childhood and my adulthood and my whatever I am right now hood, because I'm getting old. But before I get into it, would you mind subscribing to the channel? Just go down there, subscribe, and while you're doing that, why don't you just give it a thumbs up? Wouldn't that be great? And since you're there already, why not just drop a comment below? That would give me a warm fuzzies. I mean, not as many warm fuzzies as this movie will give us. We're all going to get those warm fuzzies, but still. The movie I'm talking about today is Attack of the 50-Foot CamGirl, starring Ivy Smith. It's written by Kent Rodebush and directed by the illustrious, aforementioned Jim Wynorski. Let's get into it. All right, before we get into this movie, I feel it's necessary to talk about the rich history of giant women films. We all love women. We all love giants. Why not love giant women? That sounds like a bad, rap rock, lyric from the early 2000s. Anyways, the original entry into this genre, if you can call it that, is 1958's Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. It starred Allison Hayes as the titular 50-foot woman. In this original story, it's alien radiation that causes Nancy Archer to swell to her unusual size. She's not the only thing getting swollen. Oh no, I'm sorry. Though this has an alien sphere with alien contact, the basis of this story is Nancy's cheating husband, his mistress Honey Parker, and her revenge. Next up, we have Attack of the 50-Foot Woman from 1993. This is a direct remake to the original 1958 film. This has Daryl Hannah as Nancy Archer. Daniel Baldwin is Harry Archer. Daniel Baldwin, which I don't even know which one that is, but anyways, and Christy Conway is Honey Parker. Same thing, betrayal, revenge, all that fun stuff. It wasn't until 1995 that filmmakers finally made the obvious move with these films and made Attack of the 60-Foot Centerfold. I mean, I don't want to come up as sleazy or horned up or anything like that, but I cannot believe it took 37 years to turn this movie into what every dude has wanted to see since the original in 1958. However, and we'll talk about hero. Well, there are so many heroes in this world. I always talk about Charles Band. We do have one hero that directed this movie, and that is Fred Olen Ray. He is definitely one of these heroes. He directed Attack of the 60-Foot Centerfold. This movie features 3 finalists for Playthings Magazine Centerfold of the Year. In very Fred Olen Ray style, this features a ton of nudity and a level of campiness that really makes this a fun watch. The inception of the Centerfold's enlarging event is an overdose on a magical beauty serum. Unlike the first 2 on the list, the villains in this are the other women and their ambition, jealousy, and desperation. In 2012, Roger Corman produced Attack of the 50-Foot Cheerleader. Similar to Attack of the 60-Foot Centerfold, this one is all about a beauty serum that gets abused, and we get another giant lady. This has a college setting and involves obviously cheerleaders, sorority girls, nerdy dudes making beauty serums, and of course, hot giant women. This stars Sean Young, Treat Williams, Jenna Sims, and Ryan Merriman. And Ryan Merriman is the dude who you saw. He was in a ton of horror movies from the early 2000s. You'll recognize his face, but I never knew his name till this. It's funny because he's in like Halloween Resurrection, and in a bunch of stuff. He's in like one of the Final Destination movies. You'll recognize his face, but man, I did not know his name. And anyway, the last one worth mentioning is a super low budget entry from 2016 called The Amazing Colossal Woman. This is a very lo-fi and kind of silly entry to the list. It is, however, kind of a fun watch. Well, I mean, it's a fun watch if you can convince yourself that your best buddy made a movie. Basically 90% of the budget on this was the camera rental, the Adobe After Effects and Premiere Pro monthly cost, and the Spirit Halloween mask. Because that's, in essence, all you really have on this one. Trust me, I'm not talking crap. But if you really have to pretend you're watching it at the local theater where your buddy rented it out for 2 hours for $300, and he's doing a screening that way, and you're just kind of going with that, and you're like, bro, I'm going to support you. I'm going to be there. And that's what happened with this. Okay, now that you're an expert on giant hot chick sci-fi movies, let's get to Attack of the 50-Foot Centerfold. It was released in 2022. It's available on DVD, Blu-ray, and on Full Moon streaming. Obviously, if you go to fullmoonfeatures.com or fullmoonhorror.com, you can buy all this stuff, and it's great. This movie has a 3.7 rating on IMDb with 425 ratings. As an aside, by the way, The Amazing Colossal Woman has a 5.5 on IMDb, but it only has 32 ratings. You know, you'd think with only 32 ratings that would only be the cast and crew and maybe some of their families. But if that's true, wouldn't they have like voted higher for it? Why didn't they give it a 10 if there's only 32? Anyway, this is directed by Jim Wynorski. He is probably best known for Chopping Mall from 1986, and I'm sure most of you guys know all about Jim Wynorski. You're very lucky if you do, but if you don't, you're going to have a good time going through his library, man. He's a dude that needs a whole show dedicated to him, but instead of doing that, I'll save some time at the end of this episode for a nice little tribute that he deserves. The writer for this one is named Kent Rodebush. I've talked about him before on the show. He's been a Full Moon stalwart over the last 14 or 15 years. It started in 2011 with Killer Eye Halloween Haunt. We've done a couple of films on this show, actually, that he's written. Sorority Babes and the Slime Bowl Bolorama 2 from 2022. Bring Her to Me from 2023. I think that's it. But he's written a bunch of Barbie and Kendra movies, tons of the later Evil Bong and Ginger Dead Man sequels. He did Ooga Booga, The Dead Want Women, Beep-a-thon, because you can't say the real word. It's a pretty cool documentary about beep-sploitation flicks. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I'll put up a poster. He also wrote another movie with Jim Wynorski and Full Moon called Murderbot. That's from 2023. His name is pretty familiar to me and probably to you, seeing as you're a big Full Moon fans. But on his IMDb, there's literally nothing before 2011. So I dug a little bit, and apparently he has a whole other IMDb page under the name Shane Bitterling. Now, I have no idea which of either of those names or this mystery man's real name. Under Shane Bitterling, he did a bunch of other stuff for Full Moon, too, including Real Evil, Puppet Master, Axis Rising, and the most recent Barbie and Kendra film, Barbie and Kendra Crash Joe Bob's Jamboree. And I'm curious to know like how this mystery man chose the name to give credit to which movies. It's like it kind of seems arbitrary. But as an aside, I was actually at Joe Bob's Jamboree in 2023, and I saw them film part of that movie. It's the closest I've come to actually meeting Charles Band in person. I was taking a leak at the drive-in bathroom. I turned around and he was standing there. We made eye contact, but man, I thought it might be weird if I struck up a conversation before I washed my hands. Anyway, this movie stars Ivy Smith in her feature film debut. She plays the 50-foot cam girl Beverly Wood. For a while, she plays the 5-foot cam girl, and we get some goodies then, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And Eli Sereno plays Bradley, Beverly's husband and business partner, and Christine Wynn as Fuchsia. Christine Wynn, by the way, is legendary in the nudie film circuits, man. There's actually a bunch of older school softcore and hardcore stars in this one with, you know, I think it's basically kind of Jim Wynorski maybe bringing, what's her name, Ivy Smith into, hey, by the way, if you want to make these movies, here's some of the ones that I promise you I will be making these movies forever, and I'm going to keep putting you in them because some of these women are getting kind of old and they're still in these. But anyway, I don't know what's going on. But some of those are Lisa London is Dr. Lana Rhodes. Frankie Cullen is Dennis. And those two are very, like, like, I mean, if you, not that I did, but if you used to like watch like the softcore from the 90s, they are like in a ton of those. Also had Jarrett Sacre as Gary. We even get cameos by Cindy Lucas, Becky LeBeau, and the man himself, Jim Wynorski. He actually has a great part drunk at the bar. Now, having said that, I'd be remiss if I didn't name the all-star of this movie, Chuck Serino. Now, I'm not sure if he's like related to Eli Serino, the husband in this, but he might be. But it's common, you know, when you're doing low budget movies that people have to do double or triple duty. But I defy you to give me someone who has done these three jobs on the same movie. Chuck Serino was the composer, the cinematographer, and the editor. I mean, those are three completely different jobs in like different disciplines. But I mean, leave it up. That's why I'm giving him the all-star, the MVP for this movie. All right, so let's get into the plot. In the oh-so-classy world of being an online sex worker, Beverly Woods has a huge following on all her social media accounts. As an influencer and a cam girl, her fans, by the way called the Woodies, watch her in the millions of clicks, millions of views, all this stuff. Her online shows are full of products that she's trying to hawk, and her fans are quick to buy whatever product she happens to be pushing at the time. She specializes in everything from sultry lingerie to gadgets to soaps and other products. You can argue that she's a bit vapid, maybe a bit annoying and too ambitious for her own good, but there's no denying that her online empire and her popularity are huge. And while Beverly is busy trending through her minions, a plan of lies and betrayal is hard at work to undermine her. Her opportunistic husband, who only cares about dollar signs, is teaming up with Beverly's assistant Fuchsia to execute a hostile takeover of Beverly's empire and leave her in the dust. Well, by the way, while this is going on, Beverly is always looking for the next product to sell and a new boundary to break in the industry. She sets her sights on an unproven new product line of regenerating foodstuffs. Whether it's delicious carrots or healthy hot dogs, a science team has brought her some test samples to get her approval for, hoping Beverly will endorse and market to her Woodies. Beverly, under the guise of virtue, takes a liking to the idea that she will be the person to help end world hunger. She's a little impatient with the scientists, and they state that the regenerating food isn't exactly ready to start shipping. She gets frustrated that there has been no human tests, so in an instance of an unwise impulsiveness, she takes a bite. At first, everything's fine. But it's not long before she starts feeling weird. She goes about her regular life, but soon she's expanded to 50 feet tall. Now that she's huge, Beverly doesn't waste any time investigating her suspicions of her husband and Fuchsia. She gets her verification and starts to throw a giant fit, no pun intended, sorry about that. It's from here that Beverly wreaks havoc in the valley, an unstoppable force. As the story unfolds, she's faced with giant obstacles, however none so diabolical as her husband and his duplicitous ways. Will Beverly save her company and thwart her husband's plan? Will Fuchsia get her wish and take over Beverly's online spotlight? Would you enjoy a movie if many of the camera angles were looking up at two giant women's butts? Find out by watching Attack of the 50-Foot CamGirl from 2022. Now, before I start talking about the ins and outs of this one, there's something that you should understand. I'm not even sure if I need to say this since it's a Wynorski/Full Moon feature, but I'm going to anyhow. There's a few things that you just have to overlook as you watch this. And there's some inconsistencies with the height, the size comparisons, and the clothing growing with her. And these are all just things that we don't got to think about. We just got to enjoy the movie. Like I said, I don't think I had to tell you that there would be things you had to ignore in a giant woman movie from Full Moon Features. But just in case there's someone out there who's unfamiliar with how Wynorski and some Full Moon Features work. You know what you're getting into immediately with this one, man. In the intro, we get fun little montage of boobs and butts as to tell us, make no bones about this, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to deliver what you came for, and it does. I think they did a great job, actually, in casting. Ivy Smith, who plays Beverly, is super fun. She does a great job playing the so-called vapid influencer who's going for clout. But underneath it all, she plays kind of vulnerable and has a good heart. I mean, and I also like that she looks real. I mean... Okay, well, I'm guessing that there are a couple of things on her that may not be real with her, but she doesn't look over-processed. You know, is that rude to say? I'm not trying to be like a jerk or anything like that. But, there's so many of her, like, contemporaries, oh my gosh, I kind of feel weird talking about that. I'm not trying to make judgments on looks. I'm really not. It's just that Ivy Smith endears herself to the viewers with her looks and personality, and she looks like, I don't know. I'm just going to stop right there. Secondly, we have Eli Sereno as Bradley, Beverly's sleazy and two-timing husband. My first instinct was to look at him and think that he fit that mold perfectly. I mean, like anyone who has a ponytail and questionable facial hair like that can never be trusted. Obviously, Christine Wynn is a fan favorite. Tons of softcore nudie movies, even some of the harder stuff. The fun casting choices came into play too when the scientists were brought in to showcase their regenerating food products. Like I said, Lisa London, who plays Dr. Lana Rhodes, the head scientist, is also a legend in her industry. She's been doing it forever with Wynorski. She started in a ton of nudie flicks, had a ton of parts in even like real Hollywood produced films. Her two assistants in this movie are played by Frankie Cullen and Jarrett Zachary. Frankie Cullen is a veteran when it comes to these nudie movies. The fact that all these people played the scientists is kind of a wink and a nod to us, I believe. But they all do a great job playing their respective parts. I say that, and it might sound like I'm talking about actors like an actor being in Citizen Kane. Obviously, I'm not, but just remember the kind of movie that we're talking about here. I feel like everyone understood what they needed to do, and they all did it. The running time is a very tight 63 minutes, and this is plenty. Long story short, it's a tale of deception, betrayal, and huge chicks fighting. But when all's said and done, the fighting scenes with dubious camera angles are why we came. They're silly, they're fun, that's the whole movie. The one thing that stood out to me is probably an underappreciated part of this movie is in the beginning, Beverly and her husband were talking about woodies and being sweaty losers who live in their mother's basements. I mean, not to get too real, but I'm sure that this is how like many of these influencer types feel about the people funding their lifestyles, man. I guess public service announcement, don't give your money to internet. The Blu-ray has some great extras. I realize that, behind the scenes aren't really that unique anymore, but I'm glad that not only does Full Moon keep adding behind the scenes, but they still brand them as video zones. It's a little bit different of an intro, but it's got that same music that kind of takes us back, like the intro music that plays over the intro, like stuff, you know what I'm talking about. But I'll tell you what, it's like I said, it's a reminder of the good old days that we had Video Zone episodes to watch, and I love like I said, if you're not a Full Moon fan, you don't know, Charles Band was the first one to do it, and he's still the best one to do it. But on this, there were some interviews with Charles Band, Ivy Smith, and Jim Wynorski. They just talked about, fun anecdotes. We got to see a few of the mini sets that were used to make the woman look huge. Tons of fun. This came out only 3 years ago, and I'm surprised that Ivy Smith has only been in a few movies since this. Her most recent, according to IMDb, was Witchcraft 17 in 2025. And she's only done a couple of films in between this one and Witchcraft 17. One of which is Giantess Battle Attack, also from 2022. And that's another full moon giant woman battle movie. Let's see. One last thing to mention. He's worked with hundreds of women over the years, and he's definitely worked with many different women many different times. This film is no different. I mentioned above, Lisa London is a stalwart. We also have a couple longtime Wynorski collaborators, Cindy Lucas and Becky LeBeau, with smaller parts. He loves the MILFs and G-MILFs, and you know what? Good for Jim Wynorski and Charles Band for still loving that, because they're classics. We all love a classic, and these ones are awesome. Anyway, long story short, fun movie if you know what you're getting into and temper your expectations, okay? Now, that's basically all I'll say about it. I enjoy the shit out of this movie, but I don't know. Like I said, if you're my parents or children, I hope you're not to this far. Anyway, okay, now I want to give Jim Wynorski a Corpse Collective Lifetime Achievement Award. For those of you who don't know, Corpse Collective is kind of the umbrella that Empire of the Full Moon is under. But yeah, so he deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award. Jim Wynorski is an American screenwriter, producer, and director. Early in his career, he started working on movies for Roger Corman. Like in 1982, he wrote the screenplay for Forbidden World. That's a Corman film. He made sure to include plenty of shameless nudity, a theme that would follow him throughout his career. He also wrote, along with Jack Hill, Sorceress in 1982. It starred Lee and Lynette Harris, twins and Playboy models. Lots of skin. Oh my gosh, I love that one, by the way. But Wynorski's probably best known for Chopping Mall from 1986. Julie Corman produced this one, and Jim Wynorski wrote and directed it. It's a fan favorite, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this. I don't want to go into too much detail about his whole career, because according to IMDb, he's got 111 directorial credits, 64 writing credits, and 62 producer credits. But what I want to talk about is his absolute dedication to sleaze. I think that the only man on this planet to even come close to Jim Wynorski for the love of sleaze is Fred Olen Ray. Maybe David Dakota, but I don't know. But you know what? We're not talking about them today. We'll give them their flowers if and when we talk about them more. I guess I've already talked about David Dakota, but anyways, here we go. Today is Jim Wynorski's day. Early in his career, the 80s, he made pretty regular B movies, excellent movies, but his career started to blossom in the 90s, where he started with the video erotica. He did the Body Chemistry series. He did Body Chemistry 3. It's everything you could ever want from one of those erotic, thrillers in the 90s. Kind of the film noir-esque stories coupled with a healthy ounce of dry humping action. He worked on a sequel of that, like I said, part 3. But that's not to say that he hasn't done a lot for the awesome creature features in his career either. Because he's done a lot of that. But the one thing in common with all of his films, something that Charles Band has in common with him as well, they're all very low budget. And he's very resourceful, very unpretentious, but mostly amazing, making great movies. Now, he's also made a ton of movies that don't hide what they are, straight up sexy mockbusters, films like The Witches of Brestwick, The Breastford Wives, Cleavage Field, The Da Vinci Coed, man, just obviously cracks me up, you know what you're getting, and he delivers. That he just has his regular softcore-esque films, the ones that seem to have unapologetic fun with, Shark Babes, Scared Topless, Sexy Wives Sensation, on and on, I think you get it. But yeah, this is the first Lifetime Achievement Award we've ever given here on Empire of the Full Moon. Well, I think it's kind of a given that Charles Band is on that list. But here's to you, O Master of the MILF, Sovereign of the Sexy, O King of the Kinky. Thank you for all your hard work in giving us what we want, Mr. Jim Wynorski. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks so much for sticking with it. If you're still here and haven't liked, subscribed, and commented, do that now. Make sure to go visit corpsecollective.com. You can email any feedback on mike@cadaverlab.com, and just let me know. Just message me wherever you want. I'm on all the social medias, and you can go to corpsecollective.com to get all those links. But until next time, I'll catch you later.